The Olmecs, often called the mother culture of Mesoamerica, thrived along the Gulf Coast in present-day Veracruz and Tabasco. Emerging around 1200 BCE, they established major centers like San Lorenzo and La Venta, leaving behind colossal stone heads weighing up to 40 tons. Their influence stretched across Mesoamerica, setting foundations for religion, political systems, and art that would echo for centuries. They developed one of the earliest known Mesoamerican writing systems, practiced advanced astronomy, and built ceremonial complexes aligned with celestial events. The Olmecs also introduced the famed Mesoamerican ball game, linking ritual, politics, and sport. Their ability to move massive stones without the wheel speaks to organizational strength and innovation. Though their civilization declined by 400 BCE, the Olmecs' cultural legacy persisted. Later groups, from the Maya to the Aztec, adopted Olmec religious symbols, deities, and calendrical concepts. Their mysterious downfall remains debated. Some point to environmental shifts, others to political collapse. Izapan civilization. Centered at Izapa in Chiapas near the Guatemalan border, the Izapan culture bridged the gap between the Olmecs and the classic Maya. At its height, Izapa produced more than 250 stone monuments, including carved stelae and altars that depicted rulers, gods, and mythological scenes. These works are considered transitional, blending Olmec symbolism with early Maya style. Izapa flourished from about 600 BCE to 100 CE, thriving on fertile volcanic soils that supported cacao cultivation. Its people likely traded widely, spreading iconography and ritual traditions throughout southern Mesoamerica. Many scholars argue that key Maya myths, including elements of the Popol Vuh, trace their visual origins to Izapan carvings. Though eventually overshadowed by the rise of great Maya cities like Tikal and Calakmul, Izapa's artistic and cosmological innovations shaped Mesoamerican civilization. Teotihuacan, the city of the gods, rose in the Valley of Mexico around the 1st century CE and grew into one of the largest urban centers of the ancient world, with a population estimated between 125,000 and 200,000. Its Grand Avenue of the Dead, flanked by the pyramids of the Sun and Moon, still awes visitors today. At its peak between 200 to 550 CE, Teotihuacan controlled trade routes, exported obsidian, and influenced distant regions as far as Guatemala. The city was carefully planned with a grid system, multifamily apartment compounds, and temples aligned to celestial cycles, showing remarkable urban sophistication. Despite its dominance, Teotihuacan mysteriously declined after 550 CE, possibly due to internal unrest or resource exhaustion. Its culture, however, shaped Mesoamerica for centuries. The Toltecs and Aztecs revered its ruins as sacred. To this day, Teotihuacan stands as a testament to ancient engineering genius. The Zapotecs built one of the longest-lasting civilizations in Mesoamerica, centered in Oaxaca's valley. By 500 BCE, they had founded Monte Alban, a mountaintop capital with plazas, pyramids, and carved stone monuments known as danzantes. These figures, once thought to be dancers, are now believed to depict conquered captives. Monte Alban's peak population reached nearly 25,000, making it one of the earliest true cities of Mesoamerica. The Zapotecs developed their own writing system and a calendar, independent yet parallel to the Maya. Their hieroglyphs appear on stone slabs and tombs, recording rulers and conquests. They also engineered terraced hillsides for farming, sustaining urban growth despite rugged terrain. Religion played a central role, with temples dedicated to rain and fertility gods. Even after Monte Alban's decline around 900 CE, Zapotec influence endured in cities like Mitla and Zyatila. When the Spanish arrived in 1521, Zapotec kingdoms still flourished, fiercely resisting conquest. Their legacy survives today in living Zapotec communities and languages still spoken in Oaxaca. By the way, I'm going to be posting a lot more interesting videos on the channel. I'll greatly appreciate it if you could show support by liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Thank you. Mixtec civilization. The Mixtecs of Oaxaca, Puebla, and Guerrero emerged as a dominant power after the decline of Monte Alban. Known for their codices, folded deer-hide manuscripts painted with vibrant glyphs, they preserved dynastic histories, marriages, and conquests in extraordinary detail. Their artistry extended to goldsmithing, turquoise mosaics, and elaborate tombs, which dazzled both allies and enemies. At their height in the post-classic era, 1000 to 1523 CE, the Mixtecs controlled a patchwork of city-states, often linked by strategic marriages. Rivalry and alliances shaped their politics, with leaders like 8-Deer Jaguar Claw leaving legendary records of warfare and diplomacy. These stories show how deeply Mixtec society valued lineage and legitimacy. The Mixtecs fiercely resisted Aztec expansion, but eventually many of their territories fell under Aztec tribute. After Spanish conquest, Mixtec codices became invaluable for understanding pre-Hispanic life, bridging indigenous history with colonial chronicles. Maya civilization, spanning Guatemala, Belize, Honduras, and Mexico's Yucatan, the Maya civilization stands among history's most sophisticated. While its early roots date back to around 2000 BCE, the Classic period, 250 to 900 CE, witnessed the rise of great cities such as Tikal, Palenque, and Copan. These centers boasted towering pyramids, ball courts, and plazas teeming with life. The Maya mastered hieroglyphic writing, astronomy, and mathematics. They calculated the solar year with near-perfect accuracy and used the concept of 0 centuries before Europe. Their inscriptions recorded dynasties, wars, and rituals, bringing rulers and gods into a seamless cosmic order. Population centers like Tikal exceeded 60,000, connected by complex trade and alliances. While many classic cities declined around 900 CE, Maya culture endured in northern centers like Chichen Itza and Mayapan until Spanish conquest in the 16th century. The last Maya stronghold, Nochpeten, fell in 1697. Yet millions of Maya descendants live today, preserving languages and traditions that survived conquest and colonization. Toltec. After the fall of Teotihuacan, the Toltecs rose in central Mexico as a militaristic powerhouse. Their capital, Tula, also known as Tollan, featured massive pyramids and the famous Atlantean statues, stone warrior columns that symbolized their dominance. At their peak, the Toltecs controlled much of central Mexico and influenced regions as far as the Yucatan. Toltec culture fused militarism with artistry. They spread Quetzalcoatl worship and influenced Chichen Itza's architecture, linking central Mexico with Maya lands. Obsidian trade and tribute from conquered regions enriched Tula, making it a political and religious hub. Warriors and priests stood at the center of Toltec society, reflecting a balance of power. By the mid-12th century, Tula collapsed, likely due to famine, civil war, and nomadic invasions. Yet the Toltecs' reputation lived on. The Aztecs later revered them as cultural forebears, claiming descent from Toltec rulers to legitimize their own empire. Aztec Empire. The Aztecs, or Mexica, transformed from nomadic newcomers to rulers of a vast empire in less than 200 years. From their island capital, Tenochtitlan, founded in 1325 on Lake Texcoco, they built causeways, canals, and the towering Templo Mayor. By the early 1500s, their triple alliance with Texcoco and Tlacopan commanded tribute from over 400 city-states. Aztec society thrived on trade, warfare, and religious devotion. They practiced human sacrifice on a scale unmatched in the region, believing it sustained the sun and universe. Markets like Tlatelolco astonished Spanish chroniclers, bustling with tens of thousands of traders. At its peak, Tenochtitlan's population may have exceeded 200,000, larger than most European capitals of the time. In 1519, Hernán Cortés and his Spanish forces allied with native rivals of the Aztecs, leading to the empire's fall in 1521. Despite its collapse, Aztec influence endures in Mexico's culture, language, and identity. Mexico itself stems from Mexica, the Purépecha. While the Aztecs dominated central Mexico, the Purépecha Empire rose in Michoacán as their greatest rival. Centered at Tzintzuntzan, they developed a unique architectural style with circular temples known as yacatas. By the 15th century, the Purépecha controlled a powerful state that resisted Aztec expansion, creating a frontier of constant tension. The Purépecha excelled in metallurgy, crafting copper and bronze weapons that gave them a technological edge. Their empire was highly centralized, ruled by the Kazanchi, king, who commanded tribute and organized defenses. Unlike their Aztec neighbors, the Purépecha conducted fewer human sacrifices, but warfare and expansion were still central to their power. When the Spanish arrived in the 1520s, the Purépecha surrendered more quickly than the Aztecs, hoping to avoid devastation. Still, colonial oppression reshaped their society. Today, Purépecha culture endures in Michoacán, where their language and traditions remain vibrant. Totonac civilization. The Totonacs flourished on the Gulf Coast of Veracruz, building the spectacular city of El Tajín between 600 and 1200 CE. Known for its Pyramid of the Niches, featuring 365 recessed panels that likely represented the solar calendar, El Tajín stood as one of the greatest ceremonial centers of its time. The city also featured elaborate ball courts decorated with ritual carvings. By the post-classic era, the Totonacs were organized into smaller kingdoms, with their capital at Chempoala. Skilled in agriculture, especially vanilla cultivation, they maintained vibrant trade networks that connected them with other Mesoamerican states. Their cultural traditions also emphasized the volador ceremony, a ritual dance performed on high poles that still survives today. When the Spanish arrived in 1519, the Totonacs were among the first to ally with Hernán Cortés, helping topple the Aztec Empire. Though colonization devastated their population, Totonac culture endured in rituals, crafts, and community life that continue in Veracruz. Classic Central Veracruz culture. Distinct from the Totonacs, the classic Central Veracruz culture thrived in the lowlands of modern-day Veracruz during the early and Middle Classic period. Known for its intricate stone reliefs, ceramic artistry, and emphasis on the ball game, this culture left behind striking monuments such as those at Cerro de las Mesas and Remojadas. Their art often depicted ball players wearing elaborate gear, suggesting the game's ritual significance. The region also produced distinctive, smiling face figurines that may have been linked to fertility or ancestor veneration. Trade was vital, with obsidian, shells, and cacao moving through their cities. Though overshadowed by Teotihuacan and later the Totonacs, the classic Veracruz culture played a crucial role in spreading the religious and ritual traditions that tied Mesoamerica together. The Huastecs, a Maya-related group, settled in northeastern Mexico along the Gulf Coast in what is now Tamaulipas, Veracruz, and San Luis Potosí. Linguistically tied to the Maya, they diverged early, developing their own unique identity. They became known for their music, featherwork, and intricate shell ornaments. By the post-classic era, Huastec city-states thrived along fertile river valleys. They practiced agriculture, produced cotton textiles, and maintained important Gulf trade routes. Their temples and sculptures often depicted fertility deities, and Huastec art is famous for expressive human figures carved in stone. Though conquered by the Aztecs in the late 15th century, the Huastecs maintained semi-autonomous city-states. Spanish colonization brought further upheaval, but Huastec communities continue to exist, preserving traditions and language that link back to their ancient past. Otomi civilization. The Otomi were among the oldest peoples of central Mexico, occupying the highlands long before the Aztecs rose to power. Their settlements stretched across the valleys of Hidalgo, Querétaro, and Mexico State. Known as skilled farmers and traders, they cultivated maguey for pulque, maize, and beans while building fortified hilltop towns. Although often overshadowed by their more powerful neighbors, the Otomi played key roles in regional politics. Many served as mercenaries for the Aztec Empire, while others resisted domination, maintaining independent communities. Their language group, Otomanguean, is one of the most diverse and ancient in Mesoamerica. When the Spanish invaded in the 16th century, some Otomi groups allied with Cortés against the Aztecs, securing partial autonomy under colonial rule. Today, the Otomi remain one of the largest indigenous groups in Mexico, preserving language and traditions that stretch back thousands of years. The Olmec culture emerged in central Veracruz after the decline of the Olmecs. Its most famous site, Tres Zapotes, carried forward Olmec traditions while pioneering new innovations. This culture is best remembered for developing the Isthmian script, one of the earliest writing systems in the Americas. Carved stelae from Tres Zapotes and La Mojara record rulers, rituals, and calendar dates using the long count, the same system later perfected by the Maya. Monument 1 from Tres Zapotes bears the earliest known long count date, 31 BCE, making it a cornerstone of Mesoamerican chronology. Although their cities never rivaled the scale of Teotihuacan, the Olmec forged a cultural bridge between the Olmecs and the classic Veracruz peoples. Their script, art, and calendar laid foundations for later civilizations, leaving a vital but often overlooked legacy. Mix civilization. The Mix people settled in the rugged mountains of northeastern Oaxaca, where they cultivated maize, beans, and squash on terraced slopes. Linguistically linked to the Zoque, their language belongs to the Mixozoquian family, thought to be connected to early Olmec traditions. Unlike the centralized states of the Zapotecs or Aztecs, the Mix lived in semi-autonomous communities bound by shared rituals and traditions. Their culture emphasized music, oral history, and complex communal governance. The mountains provided natural defenses, helping them resist outside domination. Even after the Spanish conquest, the Mix retained their independence longer than many other groups. Today, Mix communities continue to thrive in Oaxaca, where their language and traditions remain vibrant, offering a direct line back to one of Mesoamerica's enduring civilizations. The Zoque, close relatives of the Mix, occupied northwestern Chiapas and parts of Veracruz and Oaxaca. Their roots stretch back to the early pre-classic era, and many scholars believe they preserved cultural traditions linked to the Olmecs. Farming maize, beans, and cacao, they maintained thriving trade with neighboring groups, connecting highlands and coastal regions. Zoque society consisted of small chiefdoms rather than large centralized states. Still, they contributed significantly to Mesoamerican religion and ritual. Archaeological evidence links them to early versions of the Mesoamerican ballgame, as well as to ceremonial practices involving cave shrines and mountain worship. By the late post-classic, Zoque groups came under pressure from expanding neighbors, including the Aztecs. The Spanish conquest further disrupted their society, yet Zoque communities endure in Chiapas and Oaxaca today, preserving a heritage that reaches back thousands of years. West Mexican shaft tomb tradition. In western Mexico, modern Jalisco, Nayarit, and Colima, an unusual cultural tradition flourished. Instead of grand pyramids, the people built deep shaft tombs up to 20 feet underground, where elite individuals were buried with pottery, figurines, and ornaments. These burials, dating between 300 BCE and 400 CE, reveal a society that honored its ancestors through elaborate funerary practices. The ceramic figures found in these tombs are among the most iconic in Mesoamerican archaeology. They depict warriors, dancers, animals, and family scenes, offering vivid glimpses into everyday life. Some figures even show ball players, linking the region to wider Mesoamerican traditions. Though little is known of their political structure, the shaft tomb cultures demonstrate the diversity of Mesoamerica. Their artistic legacy continues to fascinate, standing apart from the monumental cities of central and southern Mexico. Xochicalco. After Teotihuacan's fall, the city of Xochicalco rose in the highlands of Morelos as a fortified hilltop center. Established around 650 CE, it flourished for 2.5 centuries, blending influences from Teotihuacan, the Maya, and the Zapotecs. Its architecture shows military planning, with ramparts and terraces protecting its urban core. The Temple of the Feathered Serpent at Xochicalco is one of its most striking monuments, decorated with reliefs of Quetzalcoatl and astronomical imagery. Scholars believe the city functioned as a cultural crossroads where different traditions converged, creating a vibrant fusion of styles. By 900 CE, Xochicalco was abandoned, possibly due to internal unrest or conflict, yet its remains stand as testimony to a turbulent era of shifting powers. The city is now a UNESCO World Heritage Site, preserving one of the best examples of a classic-era fortress city in Mesoamerica. Cholula, in modern-day Puebla, was one of the longest continuously inhabited cities in Mesoamerica. By the Classic era, it had grown into a major religious center, famous for the Great Pyramid, known as Tlachihualtepetl, the largest pyramid by volume in the world. Layers of construction show centuries of ceremonial use, blending local traditions with influences from Teotihuacan and beyond. During the post-classic period, Cholula became a thriving city of around 100,000 inhabitants, rivaling Tenochtitlan in importance. It was known as a holy city dedicated to Quetzalcoatl, drawing pilgrims from across Mesoamerica. Its artisans excelled in pottery, producing fine polychrome ceramics traded widely across central Mexico. When Hernán Cortés marched into Cholula in 1519, a brutal massacre of thousands marked one of the darkest chapters of the conquest. Despite this, the city survived, and today, the Great Pyramid remains a monumental reminder of Cholula's ancient significance. Tlaxcala. The Tlaxcalteca Confederation rose in the highlands of central Mexico, surrounded by Aztec-controlled territories. Despite constant warfare, Tlaxcala resisted Aztec conquest, maintaining independence through a federation of city-states. Their warriors became famous for ferocity, engaging in the so-called Flower Wars against the Aztecs, ritualized battles meant to capture sacrificial victims. By the early 1500s, Tlaxcala had become one of the last major holdouts against Aztec domination. When Cortés arrived in 1519, the Tlaxcalteca initially fought him but soon allied with the Spaniards. This alliance proved decisive, providing thousands of warriors who helped topple Tenochtitlan in 1521. Though colonization reshaped their world, the Tlaxcalteca were rewarded with privileges under Spanish rule for their role in conquest. Their legacy is complex, viewed as both defenders of independence and as controversial allies of the invaders. Quiche Kingdom of Cumarcaj. In the Guatemalan highlands, the Quiche Maya forged a powerful kingdom centered at Cumarcaj, also known as Utatlan. Rising around 1200 CE, the Quiche expanded through military conquest and alliances, controlling much of the western highlands. Their society was hierarchical, ruled by noble lineages who oversaw tribute and warfare. The Quiche are remembered for the Popol Vuh, a mytho-historical text preserving Maya cosmology, creation stories, and dynastic traditions. Warriors and priests occupied high positions, and their armies dominated neighboring peoples until the Spanish arrived in 1524. In that year, Pedro de Alvarado and his indigenous allies defeated the Quiche, burning Cumarcaj and capturing its leaders. Despite the collapse of their kingdom, Quiche culture endures, with nearly 1 million speakers of the language still preserving traditions rooted in their ancient past. Itza. The Itza were a Maya group who rose to prominence in the northern Yucatan, with Chichen Itza as their legendary capital. Between 800 and 1100 CE, the city became one of the largest and most cosmopolitan in Mesoamerica. Its monuments, like El Castillo Pyramid, the Temple of the Warriors, and the Great Ball Court, show a striking blend of Maya and Central Mexican styles, reflecting broad cultural connections. Chichen Itza controlled trade routes across the peninsula, exporting salt, honey, and cacao. It also became a center for religious pilgrimage, with the sacred cenote serving as a site of offerings and sacrifices to the rain god Chac. After Chichen Itza's decline, the Itza migrated to the Petén region of Guatemala, founding their last capital at Norpetén. The Itza held out against Spanish conquest for nearly 2 centuries longer than most other Mesoamerican states. It wasn't until 1697 that the Spanish finally subdued Noypetén, making the Itza the last independent Maya kingdom. Lenca civilization. The Lenca occupied southwestern Honduras and eastern El Salvador, forming a cultural bridge at the southern edge of Mesoamerica. They spoke their own language and maintained distinct traditions, but their architecture, rituals, and agricultural systems tied them to the broader Mesoamerican world. Farming maize and beans on terraced hillsides, the Lenca sustained large populations in fortified towns. Politically, the Lenca organized into chiefdoms led by regional warlords. They resisted both Maya expansion and later Spanish incursions. Their leader, Lempira, became legendary for rallying thousands of warriors against Spanish forces in the 1530s. Though eventually defeated, he remains a national hero in Honduras today. The Lenca maintained strong spiritual traditions tied to mountains, rivers, and maize deities. Even after conquest, many of their rituals blended with Catholicism, surviving as part of Honduras and El Salvador's cultural identity. The People, also called the Nahuatl people, migrated from central Mexico into western El Salvador around 900 CE. They founded the powerful kingdom of Cuscatlan, with their capital near modern San Salvador. By the 15th century, they controlled fertile valleys and defended their territory against both Maya neighbors and Aztec raiders. Agriculture sustained their economy, particularly cacao, which was used as currency across Mesoamerica. Politically, they built a confederation of city-states under a ruling elite who maintained tribute networks. Their warriors were feared across the region, resisting repeated Aztec incursions. In 1524, the Spanish, led by Pedro de Alvarado, invaded. Despite fierce Pipil resistance, including at the Battle of Acajutla, Cuscatlan fell within a generation. Today, the Pipil language and identity are experiencing revival efforts, preserving links to their once great kingdom, Chorotega civilization. The Chorotega occupied southern Nicaragua and northwestern Costa Rica, living at the far edge of Mesoamerica's cultural frontier. Migrating from central Mexico centuries earlier, they brought Nahua traditions but adapted them to their new environment. Their settlements combined farming, fishing, and trade, creating a balanced economy in fertile lowlands and coastal areas. They built towns with plazas and temples, practiced the Mesoamerican ball game, and honored deities linked to maize and fertility. The Chorotega were skilled potters, producing distinctive ceramics that circulated widely. They also cultivated cacao, maize, and cotton, anchoring themselves to Mesoamerican economic networks despite their distance from the core. By the early 1500s, the Chorotega were divided into chiefdoms, each led by a cacique. Spanish conquistadors arrived in 1522, subjecting them to rapid colonization. Still, the Chorotega influence is preserved in Costa Rica and Nicaragua, where many place names and traditions trace directly back to their culture. The Nicarao, a Nahua-speaking people related to the Aztecs, settled along Nicaragua's Pacific coast after migrating south in the post-classic era. Their arrival displaced earlier groups and established a new cultural order just before Spanish contact. Their society reflected Aztec influences in religion, language, and social structure. They organized into chiefdoms led by hereditary rulers who oversaw tribute and ritual practices. Like their northern relatives, the Nicarao worshipped gods such as Zapotec and practiced ceremonies involving human sacrifice. Agriculture was central, with maize, beans, and cacao sustaining their settlements. In 1522, Spanish explorer Gil González Dávila encountered the Nicarao, marking one of the earliest contacts between Europeans and Central American peoples. Within decades, disease and conquest devastated their population. Yet their legacy endures in Nicaragua's cultural identity. The country itself takes its name from Nicarao, one of their leaders. If you enjoyed this video, I'm gonna be posting a lot more interesting videos on the channel. I'd greatly appreciate it if you could like and subscribe. Thank you very much.